Stop! Sure you want the rest of it?
Dirty Harry Minute. Dirty Harry Minute. Dirty Harry Minute Podcast. Dirty Harry Minute Podcast.
Every penny's worth.
Welcome again to Dirty Harry Minute. This is the world's and perhaps the universe's first podcast to analyse the 1971 Don Siegel directed film Dirty Harry and every minute of it. And this episode we are joined by
John.
And welcoming back
Jordan. I just said my name. Jordan.
Thank you for joining us again, Jordan and John. Have you missed a minute at all yet, John?
No, I've been on every minute's worth. You and Tim have been absent from many.
Oh,
I've been absent
Ouch.
from all of them, but this one and some others.
and some others.
And some others, and other minutes.
And my name's Trent, by the way. Sorry, just in case you missed it. I was going to introduce it as John Laws, but I feared we might get an injunction against us.
We don't have a golden microphone.
No. Perhaps we'll have to get Ellen Jones. This Laws impersonation is not working. Cool. Anyway.
What minute are we reviewing, Trent?
We're reviewing... we can't do the English today. We are reviewing minute 79. The minute begins with a black and white TV being turned off and ends with Harry saying to Chico on the roof hospital, "Been talking to Bresler about you being on permanent with me."
Wow, what a minute this was.
It was quite the minute.
What do you think, Jordan?
So I've spoken before on last podcast that I saw this movie for the first time when I was quite young. This movie broke my perception of reality, because prior to this movie I was used to seeing movies with superheroes, and quite often I grew up with Spider-Man and X-Men and the Fantastic Four, and all of that was people that they find someone that they think is guilty, Spider-Man, to just tie them up in a big web and be like, all right, for the cops, cool. And then in this movie, they're like, if you don't have evidence, they're not going to jail. And that immediately just made my brain go, oh, all those people Spider-Man caught it. Still, none of them went to prison. Either Spider-Man has to kill them or not at all. Those are his choices now. So when I watched this movie, I thought I was coming to the end of the film, because I thought the captain was going to be like, you did good work. And instead he was like, you prick. You didn't bloody get any evidence, you dumb idiot. And I'm like, I didn't know you had to do that in real life. Because I was very young. I watched this movie when I was 8, maybe. So I didn't understand that laws works, let alone that, just because you know someone is guilty doesn't mean you can prove it. And that was important.
Yeah.
So I just went, they caught the bad guy, cool. And then the person who is the policeman when I was a kid was like, yeah, look, we're not putting him in jail because... look, you messed up. And I was like, oh. So yeah, this movie fractured every other movie I'd ever seen.
So, he's not slinging webs and... No, maybe he is after hours, I don't know. But he's not leaving them hanging from...
Yeah, but coming off of the back of, I watched this movie with my dad who showed me a bunch of spaghetti westerns. And I got really into them, and he was like, oh, well, cool, let me show you one of these movies. And again, in spaghetti westerns, there's not consequences. You find the bad guy, you know they're the bad guy, you shoot the bad guy in the face. In this... It's that concept of bringing in the reality of the law, of being if you didn't get a warrant, you didn't get the legal sort of repercussions that are going to happen then. So
In this particular case, it's about whether Harry has been harassing Scorpio Trent. Why do you think they chose the chief to... It's not really a dressing down. The chief's not really angry at him. Do you think... Is the chief inviting Harry into the fold, saying, look... tell me what's happening here. Are you on the edge now? Or is the chief really supposed to be punishing him in this scene, Trent? Or
I think it's his duty, because he's the one who's going to have to answer to, his superiors, the mayor, and, any sort of higher government department if there's, an investigation. It's his head that's going to be on the chopping block, so he's got to get all the facts.
Yeah.
So with this minute, it...
Back to an office. That lovely wood panelling again, Jordan. We love the wood.
We love the wood. That's a sentence that now people are going to have as a soundbite, and it's going to go out of control. But as much as I love these movies, there's a major flaw that happens right in this scene. Mm-hmm. And what it is Dirty Harry is an idiot.
What?
It's a massive plot hole, but Dirty Harry apparently doesn't know how the law works.
Where have you
He
been?
finds out now that you needed to get a warrant to get, like, he's like, what do you mean? I got the gun. That means the guy's going to jail. And they're like, no, there's this thing called the law. And he's like, what do you mean the law? Tell me about the law. And like, what are you talking about? You would have had to study that. You're an inspector. Firstly, you had to go and learn about that. Then you had to be a rookie cop for like 10 years. Then you had to work with another inspector, and then you became an inspector, and then you've been Dirty Harry the inspector for what seems like forever in this movie. Like, he looks like he's got a reputation.
Yeah.
And now here, the captain's like, yeah, look, I mean, you don't have, like, well, that why does he not know this? What has he been doing?
Well, the law's crazy.
Yeah, I know, but he should, it's just a weird moment for it to come up this far in, for him to be like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? I needed they're harassing me and all of that. You know all of this. You've been a cop for 40 years, like 1,000 years.
Jordan,
looking at
day
his
in,
face.
day out, you're eating these potassium-laden hot dogs. Your ability to record short-term memories is very,
It's just, who let this guy be an inspector? He doesn't know the law. The captain shouldn't be like, give it to me
chief.
straight. Yeah, the chief shouldn't be like, give it to me straight. He should be like, the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you on LSD? Tell me if you're on LSD. Because you know all of the things that you did were wrong in every way, and you know this. And he's like, do you want my badge? Yes! You're not an inspector. You're just a guy with a gun who's saying he's an inspector.
Speaking of the
Talking
badges,
about.
Jordan, Trent, don't you love how they're all displayed there on the wall?
Yeah.
I think the line where he says, you want my star, I think in the script Harry was probably supposed to gesture towards the stars, but he sort of forgets to do that.
I like to think that he's like, yes, give me the star, I'll add it to my collection. And there's just a whole bunch of other people that don't know the law.
That collection of badges reminds me of my grandmother's collection of spoons she had on the wall.
Oh,
On
yeah,
those,
from holidays.
from all over the world, kind of thing.
My grandma used to collect matches when hotels used to give out those paper fold matches.
I've got this vivid memory now of Trent getting in trouble and being like, do you want my spoon?
Yeah, pretty much.
Back in your heroin days.
Oh, yeah, with the lighter and all that stuff.
Back when you went to law school for 400 years and then immediately forgot how all the laws worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, classic. Classic Dirty Harry. Now we know why they call him Dirty Harry.
We've mentioned in past minutes the chief here is played deliciously by John Larch, who's famous to me and to many for being in It's a Good Life, the Twilight Zone episode where the kid has the superpowers. Can do
30 years before I was born.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. You may know it from the Simpsons piss take where Bart has powers with his mind to
Okay,
change.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so every time I see this, see Harry as young Anthony Fremont going, and Larch just going, no, it's a good thing you did, Harry. It's a good thing. It's a very good thing you did, Harry.
Largely known to me as being one of the few actors whose neck is somehow too big for both his suit and his head. His neck is escaping from that button shirt.
He's actually
Incredible.
a lot older than I thought he was. He's
Could he be Harry's dad? In your heart of hearts, Jordan.
Plot twist.
16 years older than Eastwood. So
maybe,
it
but
doesn't mean shit.
But people went through people went through what's it called, adolescence when they were 10 back then, yeah.
It's true.
Clint Eastwood was born at 40 years old. He came out at 40.
Jordan, you may not have heard our theory that this chief is in fact a ghost, because we see him a lot of time delivering these soliloquies, and Harry's the only one that sees him.
Amazing. So it's like, it's Field of Dreams.
Exactly.
I mean, arguably, Harry could just be an inmate at like some sort of psych ward, just staring at a wall, being like, I'm a cop, I'm a cop, I'm a cop. There's no way to know that he isn't. But that'd be great. Just get M. Night Shyamalan it. Just be like, just at the end, I see dead people.
I think we also missed Tim, one of our co-hosts. He does Dirty Harry Fashion Minute, Jordan.
Okay.
And Harry's got a lovely suit on now. We haven't seen it up until this point, have we, Trent?
Let's have a look.
My favorite Dirty Harry look is the red sweater vest that he has at the beginning. He's got the elbow pads and then the red sweater vest, and it's so great. The colouring of that scene is beautiful at the beginning.
That is a nice suit. That's a good tie with it.
It's a good suit.
It is a damn good
It's one of the few suits in the Dirty Harry trilogy that hold up as being something you could wear today, whereas the rest of them, they're all these ties, and you're like, oh, brown and cream? No.
So have we talked much about John Larch at all?
We've mentioned, what? No Leslie Nielsen are available? How he's in he's in 3 classic Twilight Zone episodes, and... Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's just having a really rough look here. It's hard to determine what he's best known for. I mean, I don't know how.
Presumably he did this and then went on to do 5 more shows where he just wears this and talks down to other people in movies.
And you look at his credits,
Typecast as just General Chief Man.
it's not too dissimilar to that, actually, to be honest with you.
In Clintland, of course, he played another police officer in Play Misty for Me. Clint's directorial debut
Play
that came
Misty
out.
for Me.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Wonderful.
Love that film.
John Larch.
John Larch.
So he was in his mid-50s here.
And then he remained in his 50s forever.
And you look, if we go to 1971 and look at his career beyond there. Oh, look, he was a character called Warner in the year in a film. The
Warner
year before.
or Water?
Warner.
Warner.
That Play Misty for Me, Sergeant McCallum, The Partners, which was a TV show that same year, Sheriff Fender.
He's one of those characters that are either going to be like a chief, a sheriff, or a warden, and that's it.
Yeah.
He gets murdered in Play Misty for Me, so that's why we thought, he's definitely a ghost chief here. Do you think Harry's cool? Do you like Eastwood's performance?
Absolutely.
Yep.
I love all of his things, but at the same time, he's one of those actors that have clearly got away with being the same character in every film. It's sort of one of those things like he's just, it's cool, but that's all he will ever be now. Like once he nailed it as like, I think he was in Rawhide? He's starting Rawhide, and then from there he did Blondie, and once he nailed Blondie, the character in There's Spaghetti Like a Fistful of Dollars and a few dollars more and all of those, they went, cool, and then his agent went, alright, there's about 1,000 more westerns that would like to use you.
Yeah.
And he gets on set and he goes to the director, he's like, so what character am I playing? And they're like, just do Blondie. And then he did that forever, and then he did his own movie, and he was like, gotta give the people what they want.
Didn't Sergio Leone say Sergio Leone said Clint has 2 acting positions, hat on and hat off?
On and hat off, yeah. Cigar in, cigar out.
You know what? If I'm honest, did I 5 shots or 6 in all this
Yeah.
excitement? I mean, that sort of line could be in one of the spaghetti westerns.
Absolutely.
And I
yeah.
actually think I prefer my mule don't like people laughing. I reckon that's superior to the.
Yeah, it's sort of like even the writing, a lot of this, as iconic as this movie is, I think if you were to review it coming off the bat of his other films, you would think that this is them remaking those other films and just being like, how about we do another Western, but we'll give it in the modern day.
Yeah.
And then you can read into that a lot more. But I think the original script idea was just, let's make another one of these, but we'll put it in the modern day and see how people react to it. And it just went on to become this phenomenon. But before that, they were like, yeah, sure, we'll make another one of these. We'll do another spaghetti Western, but set it in America because then we don't have to travel overseas.
Trent, do you think the chief believes Harry?
Yeah,
He
I
does?
do. I think the way he looks at him, the way he uses his words. I don't know if you've ever been in a workplace where you've been witness or privy to something, and your boss or supervisor is accountable to someone else and is questioning you about it because they're the ones that, like this guy, the head is on the block.
That's my life at the moment. I work at a primary school. Yeah. So anytime there's any...
So every day you see young sociopaths in the making. Little kids.
There's legitimate times where you see a kid and I'm a teaching aide, so my job is to go on and help them, and sometimes you walk out and you're like, he'll be in jail. It's fine. He'll be on TV. But no, because so every now and then, there's a kid who's like, I'm telling on you because they don't like that you're trying to get them to do math or something, and they go home. You don't know what story they're going to spin to their parents. Then you have to go up to the principal or the vice principal, like, just letting you know, this happened today. Here's what happened. Here's where I dealt with it. And if you've got that rapport, which you need, it's a system based on trust. So you tell them, and they're like, okay, cool. Now I know exactly what's happened. If the parents decide to call up and ask about it, I know what you've told me. So yeah, 100%. This is a moment that I can relate to, just in terms of having to explain to authority what happened so that they can then defend themselves and have your back a bit.
Exactly. He's obviously worked with him a long time. He trusts him.
Yeah.
I think they've got...
He's not longingly looking when Harry leaves like, you're my son, Harry.
No. But I reckon they both come at the root of it from the same social perspective.
All right.
I think they both have, a lot of the same values at the root of
Potrero Hill values?
Maybe.
I'd say the difference is Harry has, because of his position in comparison to the chief doesn't have the luxury of acting on impulse.
Yes.
The chief is probably like, yeah, I'd also kick the shit out of this guy.
Yeah.
But we're lawmen. We're not allowed to do that. You should know you're not allowed to. So he probably understands, it's like, look, I get why you did it. I would have done the same thing if I didn't have a job.
Yeah.
But I have a job and so do you. That all being said, relating back to how I said that Harry doesn't know the law, it'd be as if I hit a kid And the principal was like, "You're not allowed to hit kids." And I was like, "What? What do you mean? You should know."
Yeah. It just kind of is, all right?
He looks like, as much as he doesn't look longingly, there's got to be a part of the chief just being like, "Are you an idiot?
Yeah.
It's like, are you dyslexic?" And so none of it just got through when you read all the laws that people have.
Trent,
Yes.
you revealed to listeners a few episodes ago that you probably haven't seen the movie in its entirety for like a decade or so.
Oh, I watched it in its entirety last week.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I hadn't watched it in nearly 20 years in its entirety.
Did you find the last third a bit of a drag? Like, not like.
yeah. I don't know why. I mean,
I'm reluctant to give voice to that opinion, even tentatively, but watching it over and over as I have, Jordan, after the every penny's worth scene, it sort of drags for me a bit until the end.
I think because you know it's going to end, you realise that from here on out, you guess the ending. Like, you know this movie isn't, like, back then they weren't, like, it's just not the type of film to leave you with one of those ambiguous endings of, like, and then the killer got away, roll credits.
Yeah.
You know that the killer's going to get his comeuppance, and you know that there's only 20 or so minutes left when you watch it because you can feel time go past.
Yeah.
So at this point, you know it's not going to end with Harry goes to jail and the killer goes free, roll credits. You know that the rest of it is going to be sort of just a general hunt and shoot kind of film. And as a result, you don't have that ambiguity for the rest of the film. From here on out, it's a pretty straight shooter western of just him being like, all right, well, I'll do what I did before, but this time I'll do it and throw my badge away.
From what we've read about the origin of this script that went through 4 or 5 versions, it all comes back to it was this last third of the movie that was the most revised and written and everything. And I can sort of see how they probably came up with a compromise that was the best of all worst versions. But yeah, as I watch it more and more, Trent, it starts to drag a little bit.
Well, I mean, obviously, in the rate that you guys are dissecting this film, you're gonna, like, there's gonna be some things that seem less fulfilling than others because, like, this happens quite a lot. If you look into a film a lot, you're gonna see things that weren't necessarily intended and therefore aren't necessarily there, and then you're not gonna get a payout of that extra story you've drawn in your brain. So, for instance, you talked about the fact that maybe the chief is a ghost, or maybe the chief is his father. And if you wanna, like, if you honestly wanted to seriously dissect that, for this scene, you could write an essay about it forever, but then you're not going to get a payout of that ever again, and then you're going to feel unfulfilled with it.
it's true.
So the problem with looking too deep into a film is you're going to find things that aren't there, and then you're not going to get a payout.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot when we review movies. Is like I get accused of looking too heavily at films that aren't meant to be looked that heavily at. Like this week we're reviewing Aladdin.
The Will Smith new one.
Yeah, hey, it's Aladdin, but there are people instead of animations. Good on them. What a brilliant idea. I'm sure it took them forever to come up with it. But it's one of those things where it's like, look, for the demographic, which are probably 7-year-olds, it's probably a great movie. But I'm a 25-year-old who went to watch the movie and wanted to review it, and as a result, it's fucking horrible.
Well, yeah. I mean, this scene is just another scene of Harry being, called to account. Like, in the movie, we think, oh, Harry's a hero. Now, not his heroism, but his actual competency is being challenged by someone. In this case, someone who's actually maybe more of his friend than the man.
So it should be.
Yes, probably. Have you seen Sully?
Sully.
You know, the one where Colin Hanks lands a plane?
Tom Hanks lands a plane in an ocean.
Colin's dad, God.
Tom Hanks lands a plane in a river. And then there's all that question. I haven't seen it, but I understand, like, I know the premise of the film.
Yeah. Later on, he's called to say, you should have returned to LaGuardia Airport.
Yeah.
You could have made it. And then here's, you should have got a warrant. And as the Aaron Eckhart says, you can accomplish anything if you're in a hurry.
Yeah.
But here, that girl's life was on the line. And
It's one of those things where I think the point that this movie makes well, and a lot of movies have since made that point, is common sense should come first.
the problem with common sense is it's not that common.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where it's like, clearly Dirty Harry should have done, like, maybe not tortured the guy, but at the same time be like, oh, there's a woman who's maybe dying, better go back, do the paperwork, get a warrant, maybe come back on Tuesday. Like, it's the common sense part. The chief should be like, look, you were right, but now we should sit down and figure out how we're going to explain this. And I think there's a scene later. Is it not this scene? There's a scene where there's a judge in the room.
Yes, yeah, that was earlier, yeah.
earlier, and they talk about the gun that he has, and the judge is like, "Look, it's not admissible in court." And Harry's like, "Well, it should be."
Too bad.
There should be a moment where at least the judge goes, "Okay, look, you're right, but I'm still a judge." Like
Yeah.
just that acknowledgement that, look, I get it. You're not a bit like you did what any one of us would have done, but
Well, I suppose
you still
he
have to
did.
handle the legal
I
stuff.
suppose he did literally in the words, "I'm sorry. You should have got a warrant." That was all he was going to do.
But that was like sarcasm.
Oh, Trent, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Do you think Harry's taken on board the Chief's talk to him here, and do you think he will, from now, not follow Scorpio once he, maybe gets out in hospital, or do you reckon he's going to ignore what the...
Well, what's he say to him exactly? Yep.
I forgot.
I've been following that man
He just says he doesn't want any advice. Like, he doesn't want any...
on my own time.
He doesn't want any surveillance either.
I love that on his own time should be like he thinks it's a defense.
Yeah.
Have you been following him on my own time? Oh, on your own time. You're not a cop.
That's all right
When you're
then.
on your own time, you're not a cop. You don't have to adhere to those rules.
Oh, and a flashback to previous minutes. We also have previous minutes talked about the S&M theory of this movie, where he looks too good. That's why.
So his sign-off is, "Good night, sir."
He looks too good. Dirty Harry would have also gone for the mouth and the other eye. He would have really finished the job of all facial features.
What I mean is, can Harry leave this room thinking, "I didn't actually say to the chief I wouldn't stop this"?
I reckon he can.
Do you think the chief believes that Harry's like, "Whoa, he really took that heart-to-heart on board. I'm sure he's a changed man." Like, wow, something has changed in him today.
You seen Cobra, Trent?
What, with Stallone?
The line is, "This is where the law stops and I start, sucker!"
The going back to Sully for a minute.
Yep.
Does anyone die? Were there any fatalities on that flight?
No, one of the passengers is scared, and when the wing's on the water, she decides to jump off and row toward... No, that's it. That's it.
No one dies.
No.
To me, that sounds like the most boring fucking movie. I'm sorry, but that sounds like a good Wikipedia article to read while you're trying to go to bed about that
It was a
incident.
good news story to read about.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that shouldn't have movies now. I mean, the Boston bombings. There was the Boston Running, I think it was, and they did a Mark Wahlberg movie.
How would you dramatize?
And it's
Why
Mark
would you?
Wahlberg, and he's a cop, and I'm like, look, it was horrible. No one's unsure of that. It was a horrific thing that happened, but for a story, quite boring. Some people went for a run, then there was an explosion. You don't need to put a character in that and be like, he's a superhero cop, and then there's an explosion.
I said the same thing to Trent a few weeks ago. I said, you really want to do a movie about the Emu Wars of the 30s?
Yes, I do. I want to make a film about the Great Emu War.
You've heard about this, Jordan?
No. It's close to the Alpacalypse, Lamageddon.
What's that? Is that a real thing?
No, but it should be.
Oh, damn it.
I mean,
I'm getting
hold on.
excited.
It will be. It's like the Judgment Day of our world. It's just be the Lamageddon.
So the Great Emu War was in Western Australia in about 1932, and it was a bunch of in rural regions. A bunch of farmers were pissed off at all the emus in the wild emus, sort of terrorising their stock and eating their crops and whatever.
Bloody emus. They're super organised.
And they put this thing out to the government to assist them with this cull. So anyway, the military became involved because it was hard to get them.
What?
And
What do you mean it's hard to get them?
it was hard to shoot.
They're the biggest bird on the planet.
They scatter. They're antisocial. They don't really huddle together. They all go their separate ways,
yeah.
apparently, when they're shot at. They just leave.
We have a sport in the world that's specific to shooting birds whilst flying, and these are big birds that can't fly. Who's having trouble with that?
They're and they had machine guns and things like that on them. And we lost. They gave up on the war. Like, the government lost to the emus.
The war on emus. Yeah. Oh, make that a movie and put Mark Wahlberg in it, and then halfway through it, just have a plane land on them. And have Tom Hanks get out and be like, look, I had to do my best.
But
I saw this emu farm.
this is my pitch to Screen Australia. And it's South Australian Film Corporation, if you're listening. I mean, out of anyone, I want you guys to be involved.
We know you're listening.
Because, let's take you back to the halcyon days. But listen to this poster for the film. Before the US lost Vietnam, Australia lost the Great Emu War.
Very good.
How's that?
Very
Is that a
good.
pitch? Please send
I want the
courtesy.
sequel where there's two-headed emus or something like that. Like, I want the sequel where there's go bigger and better for no reason. put John Wick in it, have only emu-based headshots,
Yep.
clearing out a room full of emus. Oh,
Those
you're right. There
eyes.
could be some incredible action sequences.
Just imagine those things kicking, and oh my god,
You'd have to go CGI though, wouldn't you?
and that's what puts me off making the film. Clearly, that's preventing the film being made.
I'm sure there's a Jurassic World like spin-off that we can do that's just called Emu Park. Just welcome to Emu Park.
A good chance to let Americans know that it's actually pronounced emu in Aboriginal languages, not emu.
Cassowary.
Cassowary.
Emu,
Cassowary, is that what
They're
they're called?
distant relatives, I think.
And they're fucking terrifying, and they could kill you very easily with the big red head.
Shall we move on now to the second part of this minute, which is the hospital scene?
Oh yeah.
living lush.
Some place online they've called it a convalescence home rather than a hospital. Do you think Chico is permanently injured by I think he was pretty much shot in the
Like,
lower
what was
part
his
of the body.
injury? Can you
He was shot in the lower
refresh-
part of the body at the Mount Davidson Cross.
I mean, this line doesn't he say I'm talking to the chief about you going permanent with me?
Yeah.
So unless he wants his partner to be nicknamed Wheels, I'm assuming he's probably gonna have his legs again. Does he ever come back in the sequels? Does he ever, or is it a new partner?
Yeah.
He's mentioned in Magnum Force, the sequel. He goes, "Don't worry," to his new partner. "Don't worry, he didn't die. He's teaching." So
I'd assume he's fine. He's probably having a great day.
Just looking up to see online, just someone random telling us what his actual injuries are.
he's shot in the lower part of the body by Scorpio's machine gun, I guess.
He's got a mole on his left cheek. That could be cancer. You don't know. Who knows?
Mr. Bean. We're back to seeing Harry's brown jacket combo. Jordan,
The horrible tie. Yeah, brown suit is probably the only thing.
what
That's
do you do
not
with the
gonna play.
blue, the nice suit in Chief's office?
Love those sunnies though. Very cool. Such a like.
I think
very cool.
the brand is Gargoyle, I think we found out. Like the same one Schwarzenegger has in T2.
Really?
I was thinking that like just a second ago because I watched Terminator 2 a couple of days. I've been doing like this binge on 80s films, and I thought they looked very similar at least.
If Harry was shot, I'm sure he could just get away with some Mercurochrome.
He's probably also made out of metal.
Chico's a nerd. He needs to be in a full-on hospital with his
Yeah.
wife there.
Is that a gasometer on the top left?
Yes, it looks like it.
Where I thought this movie was going is at this point, someone in this hospital or his partner could have been shot by the Zodiac Killer. How cool would it be to cut to this? Because time has to have passed, right? Because from him being beaten up to then being filmed, live television wasn't, to my knowledge, that's something that got aired on a bulletin TV, right? So after he was filmed in the hospital, then that footage would have been edited, put on a new show. So at least a couple of days have passed since the conversation with the chief and Harry.
Probably, yeah.
And then since then, he's gone to visit his friend. I'm assuming he didn't walk out immediately of the chief's office and go straight here. So a couple of days could have passed.
Yeah.
So I was waiting for him to be sitting here in the bed and then, like, bam, and then his partner just be left dead.
Yeah.
That would have been a great little spin to take.
Yeah.
Right? Just add, like, an element of personal, like, just personalize it even further. Because what I like is that the Zodiac ends up kind of taunting Harry. Turn that notch up to 11. Like, just have them, like, Batman and Joker it. Have them need each other for the rest of the film. Like, he's only a hero with the Zodiac, and the Zodiac is a villain now specifically just to agitate Harry. Like, change the motivations entirely. I just thought it would have been really cool. I think, as you said at the beginning of this podcast, that it sort of gets slow. And it's just because you know everything now. You know where it's going. You know that the biggest consequence we were going to get is the chief being like, look, you probably should know the law. And Harry's like, okay, fine, I guess, but not really. And then he walks out, and then the rest of the film happens exactly how it would if the past 3 scenes didn't happen, right? If you cut the movie on the football stadium where he's standing on his leg, if he shot him in the head then and threw his badge down, same movie. End credits. It's a 45-minute long film. Would have been the same as if you had the rest of this. Because it's still just, you have the beating and then the consequence. And then Harry ignores all of that.
Yeah.
And then shoots him in the head anyway. Like,
The Harry I know, as soon as he got where the body was buried, would have, as Evelyn said, put a cap in his ass.
you think that there shouldn't be a movie written where if you take half hour out of the middle of the film, it'd be the same movie. It just shouldn't happen because that shows a lacking character progression, right? From a story writing aspect, if you can take out that scene where he's talking to Chief and cut straight to this, it'd be the same. Harry's motivation doesn't change. The way Harry acts hasn't changed. nothing has changed, right? You could take out the fact that the Zodiac Killer gets beaten because he has like a mild black eye anyway.
Yes.
Which you could argue he got from Harry torturing him. So you could easily take out 15-minute, I'm not sure exactly how long, but from the first time Harry tortures him on the football field and take all of it out and just cut it to him, like, you know, being released and then getting a school bus of kids, and you've got the same movie because nothing actually changes for these characters. His motivation isn't different. He didn't learn anything. They showed consequences and then they showed that it didn't change him.
Harry doesn't learn anything in this movie.
No.
The next time he's confronted with another Scorpio, he's just going to do the same thing.
Same thing.
That's that's probably the biggest flaw with all of these films.
Is it a flaw, or is that just something that's so not a part of cinema script writing now that we find it hard to identify that with?
I can only really talk from my own perspective, of course. But if you've got a character that runs over how many movies? 4, 5? And he is the same at the beginning of that as he is at the end, then you've got zero character progression.
Well, that's why 2 of the movies are just shit.
It's shit because they force it. The progression feels it's really forced on
The
him.
character is unwavering, and that's cool, but it's not strong enough to make it's just not relatable and it's not likable.
Cool, sad isn't enough. The Harry's cool, sad character.
Relating back to other great films that came out slightly later than this from the 80s, again, like we were talking RoboCop, Terminator, both of those characters, actual robots, still have emotional character progression, right? The Terminator, like the greatest thing about Terminator 2 is the more of the machine that gets revealed, the more human he becomes. It's an incredible duality to put in Terminator 2. It's
one more chip.
And then to even build on that duality, the more the Terminator becomes human, the more Sarah Connor becomes a Terminator. Fucking great idea. RoboCop starts as this really cold sort of cop who's just like, I'm a cool guy who spins my gun, and by the end of it, he's like, you know, he's had everything destroyed, including his actual body, and he's now more human than ever, right? Cool. This film, you have a character who's like, I'm a guy and I have a gun, and if someone pisses me off, I'm gonna shoot him in the face. And 6 movies later, I'm a guy and I'm a slightly older guy, but I have a gun, and if you piss me off, I'll shoot you in the face. But I have a dog. That's not character progression. You haven't written anything new. You've just written every script for every movie after this could have just easily been the first movie of this trilogy. The first movie of this quadrilogy, or however many were made. You could start this movie anywhere. You could take the storyline from the Deadpool and make that the first movie. And just have it with...
You actually could, yeah.
So you could rearrange any of these movies, and apart from the continuity of him getting older, it wouldn't make a difference.
Yeah.
That's horrible. You shouldn't... It's just really dumb. Like... Again,
James Bond did it.
love these films, but at least James Bond, people are aware that it's like James Bond is played by a different actor, and it's sort of like maybe 007 is a code name and not like maybe there's been different 007s. This, it's just he's a man and he refuses to change, and that's the point that this movie makes, and then the point that every other movie makes. I think there's just something to be said about if you make a movie and you're going to put violence in it, the violence needs to tell a story in itself. That's what good violence does. Good violence should impact the people involved.
Yeah.
So if you have a character who's a cop, who's decided that he's going to need to break some of the laws that he should know about,
Just some of them.
then that should affect him. We should have a scene that affects him long term. That should be a constant of his character now. You build on that character. You start with someone, and then as the film goes on, as things happen to him, you should build on that character.
That was supposed to be the scene where Anne-Marie Deacon's taken out. But of course, Clint can't act, so they just
Can't move his face, unless it's specifically like his eyes, and he wears glasses. So, but it's just there should be character progression, and the fact that there isn't, not only in this movie but in all of these films.
And yet, I still love this movie, and I don't care.
Yeah, all right, that's fine. Like, I love this movie, but from a technical standpoint, the writing in it, like. Films today, you can argue, aren't made nearly as good as they used to be. They didn't have that grit to them. But a good film today, at least, is aware that there should be change in a character. For us to be able to follow that story, that character needs to evolve.
Even though in real life, a lot of people don't change that much.
Yeah, but that's not a story, though. Like, here's a story. A man went to a shop and he came back, and he was the same when he left as when he got back. Great, but it's not interesting. But the story about
Curb Your Enthusiasm. He doesn't learn anything.
I think using Captain America, a lot of people say that Captain America has no character progression from first film to like 22 films later. And I've thoroughly defended that in a manner that I disagree. So I think in the first film, he's a character that wants to be a soldier and he wants to follow commands. And by the end of it, he's a character that wants to do good regardless of whether who's giving the commands is trying to do that or not. And that shows progression. And in this, he starts out as being someone that wants to do good regardless of commands. And in this, he ends as being someone that wants to do good regardless of commands. I just think I wanted more of an emotional journey. I wanted to see, like, as you said, when they bring the body out.
Yeah.
To have a moment where he just goes home and punches a wall aggressively, or just to show that affected him in the slightest, would have been great. Any scene where he is affected by it would have been good.
They rely on Lalo's score for that Harry's theme.
Yeah.
Do-do-do-do-do-do.
I think it works with everyone else. And
That
him
builds
being-
the audience, but it doesn't build him.
Yeah.
No, good point.
But then you've got things like and it is progress and whatever the opposite of that is. Sorry, like I said earlier, English isn't in my language today. Devolution. It is. Well, that's what the band was named after, that word, devolution. You've got like Han Solo starts off as living by the seat of his pants kind of thing, and a rogue, and just sort of swindling whatever he can to sort of get by, and is always owing people things. And he become this heroic general, and for the greater good. 30 years goes by, we're reintroduced to the character, we don't know what's happened, and he's the same, and like he admits it as, what are you going to do? What I always do, talk my way out of it.
If we can go back to Rooftop Minute.
Yes.
Now, yeah.
Sorry, I derailed your whole podcast.
We love tangents here. I just, one of my notes from a few months ago said, they tried with the tagline, go ahead, try 'em, but go ahead, make my days a lot better.
What's Harry given? Oh, hang on, two things.
Are they hot dogs in the box?
We see, baby.
Here's 1,000 hot dogs.
Well, he just says, I got them from a guy I know, go to, the best. So
we've got a gasometer there. Do you know where this was shot? Did you go there?
I did not go to this part. I think it's somewhere near the Presidio, I think. I don't really know.
Where's that?
I don't know. I really don't know. Listeners, please write in and tell us where you think this is filmed. There's nothing online to indicate where it is, somewhere in San Francisco.
It's just Clint Eastwood's house. It's just the roof of his house. He didn't want to leave.
Looking down to Carmel County. And then the next thing,
Are they hot dogs in there?
are they hot dogs? So let's...
I think I see at least 11 hot dogs.
Is Harry more of a profiterole, kind of?
He's a croissant.
That building in the background sort of looks like the centre of...
Central Station.
No, the Centre for Fine Arts. In The Rock, where he meets his daughter or something.
In that famous rock movie, The Rock, he's in a rock movie.
That 1910, that exhibition for the World Fair or whatever it's called, the Palace of Fine Arts down near wherever Lucasfilm is. I don't know. Right. I don't know. Chica looks happy with what he's in there.
He looks delighted. We're still technically in the minute, kind of, sort of, maybe. No, we don't see it, do we? We don't see. He doesn't pull anything out. Now, do we think...
I like to think it's just pictures of naked women.
Yeah,
It's like, nah.
God, I'm off a guy, I know. Do we think she's probably overheating in the San Francisco sun there?
with the green.
In the green.
Is that leather, pleather, plastic?
It looks like a liquid.
Looks like PVC.
It does look like PVC. Very stylish.
That box is gone. Next scene.
Do you reckon they're married or just de facto?
Hold on, did I see a movie edit floor here? There's a box in his hands on his lap, and then cut to him looking at the box even closer, and then cut to the box just no longer being there.
He's opened and closed it a few times. I thought.
Yeah, so there's some continuity errors. He's holding the box, no box.
Jordan, speaking of IMDb corrections, here's a post from old times.
Famously known for being horrible at reading out the IMDb in our podcast. Yep.
Harry wouldn't want to share how his day was with the girlfriend. The gruesome murders, the kidnappings, robberies. Who would want to listen to all of that?
I don't think that Harry would give a fuck about any of that. I don't think Harry would have that.
His wife. Would a wife of Harry be like, Harry, you're always talking about this Scorpio. I don't care. Let's watch the Dick Van Dyke Show.
I can't imagine Harry having a wife that couldn't listen to him talking about that, because he strikes me as a character that doesn't talk about anything else. I can't imagine him being like, so what did you see on TV yesterday? Like, I can't imagine him having small talk. You know what? He'd probably be the most morbid person in the world, because people are like, oh, I had such a good day, sweetie. How was your day? Well, I tortured a man and then we found a dead girl and
Then I beat up another man, and then I was accused of almost murdering someone, and then the chief told me that I don't know the law, and then I went and visited my partner who
Did he yell
was
at you,
shot.
Harry, or did he shout at you?
Every day it's just like, so what did you do today?
Well, I went to get a hot dog, which is my normal day, and then there was a bank robbery, and so I shot about 400 people.
And it's just that, and every day it's just, what did you do today?
Well, today I killed a guy, and then I crashed my car through a glass window, and then stabbed a man in the face.
Like,
As comedian Dana Gould would say, that those conversations are the leading cause of vaginal dryness.
I'm divorcing you, Harry.
like imagine having like, you know, that water cooler talk, just around the water cooler. It's like, so did you catch Game of Thrones?
You mean, like my life? Game of Thrones? I don't watch that shit because my life is Game of Thrones. Anyone could die but me.
Like, it's just every day, it's just him murdering someone. That's what's insane, is I can't imagine him being a good cop on any day of the week. I can't imagine him just pulling someone over and being like,
Look, speed limit's 60 and you were doing 65. I'm real sorry, mate, but I'm gonna let you off with a warning.
also, bang, shoot him, dead. Like, I can't imagine him just being a good, genuine cop that people like, having a normal day. He's not a believable character outside of these circumstances.
Yeah.
I think the one believable interaction I recall him having is with his doctor. He goes to a doctor at some point, and they're like, you know, I'm gonna have to cut these pants, and he's like, don't cut them off, just take them off. I don't want a $30 pair of pants or something. I'm like, okay, cool. And then my brain just went, oh, it's Red Foreman from the '70s show. Like, he's just like that grumpy prick. Like,
What the bit with Alice in the park? Well, do it at home. Like he's kind. I mean,
he's just a mean bloke that no one would ever like, and I can't imagine him having any life outside of horrid violence. Just like imagine a slow day for that guy. What did he do? Reruns of MASH. Like, I'm not sure what he does for fun.
do we learn in the later films? I mean, I'm not going to go there actually. But besides, you know, his partner and his girlfriend in Magnum
We
Force.
don't learn a lot.
Does he have a hobby?
We know at least he likes a dog. He has a dog. It's given to him, isn't it?
I've trained my dog to kill people.
There's a scene in the Deadpool where he's working out in the gym and he's sort of oogling. Maybe he hits the gym and oogles the girls there. I don't know. He's a bit of a peeping Tom.
But do you get what I'm saying? Like, I can't imagine him doing anything other than extreme violence.
He's a hunter.
Yeah,
That's all he does.
But that's insane to me. Like, nobody should ever be surprised about anything he does, because everything he does would have to be crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I imagine every other week he's in, like, the chief's office and the chief's like, well, you killed someone else, man. Stop killing people.
Do you want my badge?
Stop threatening your badge. Just don't kill people. It's not an ultimatum. It's...
What lessons do you think Harry takes? Do you reckon Harry's seen A Clockwork Orange? And do you reckon he reckons you can, like, condition a human to get rid of his... I'd like to try that on some of my criminals.
I don't think Harry learns anything in this movie. I think, if anything, what he learnt was to be more forceful. Because what he does is he takes his time, he follows the law for maybe the first half of the film, and as a result, a girl gets killed. So if anything, at the end of this... I'm jumping ahead. Does he throw his badge in the water or something like that?
That belongs to another minute.
So, well, I guess leading up to now, I don't think he's learnt anything except maybe I should have been more violent. If I'd shot him in the head on the football field, we wouldn't be in this predicament. As far as I can tell, he learnt to be more violent.
Well, Jordan, many thanks for joining us for these minutes.
No worries. Sorry for completely derailing it.
It's good.
Trashed the film as much as I could in the last minute.
You've been one of our most erudite reviewers, talking about themes and stuff that we've been afraid to tackle. So it's great.
That's good.
Leaving right at this minute, what do you think Chico's going to say to his offer about coming on permanent? Do you think Chico looks favourable?
I think it's one of those things, because I remember him at the beginning being like, don't underestimate me. I know that your other partner like suffered some injuries, but I'm tougher. And then he immediately got shot, and he's probably like, maybe I won't be with Dirty Harry. Maybe I was a bit too, like, I thought they were exaggerating, but I was immediately stabbed. He was shot, wasn't he?
Shot, yeah, on the rooftop.
Oh, also, I can't imagine his girlfriend being like, yeah, you should go back to work. You shouldn't take any sick... Go back to work. Go work with Dirty Harry. I think it should immediately... Also, again, this guy sort of comes across as being a bit more of a straight and narrow cop.
Yep.
Yeah.
Imagine, how did he not immediately be like, you're a shithouse cop. Like, you have not followed any of the laws that I've learnt that we have... Do we not have to follow these laws? I think if anything, he's going to go off and...
Harry, don't you have a sociology degree?
Like, this guy's just going to go away and be a vigilante now. Because he's like, I don't know, I worked with my mentor, and my mentor completely disregarded all laws, and he's still a hero, I guess. So, we're all throwing our badges away, we're all...
Have any of you ever worked under anyone in any sort of business or, you know, industry where the person you've been placed with to sort of work under is a bit of a rogue?
So, not to get too personal, but I worked in a before and after school care centre. I'm not going to name it, clearly. One of the bigger ones in Victoria. And I worked for this sweet little old lady who was really sweet for the first 4 minutes of introducing herself, and then you start working for her. She turned out to be the most racist, bigoted, sexist. It was insane to me.
She hated them all.
She it was literally you feel free to cut this out. I don't know, but it was literally there was a point where there was a kid of ethnicity, and he was meant to come down to before and after school care, and he didn't, and I was meant to go look for him. And that usually means that you go to, get the form, find the picture of him, get his name, go into the school, ask the teachers. And she was like, oh, you know what he looks like.
Yeah.
Oh.
What did you do with rogues, Trent?
Well, mine was a bit different in that the person I worked under was obsessed with the greater good.
Oh, yeah.
And doing the right
greater good
things by, the people that needed to be done. I'm not going to sort of go into too much detail, but almost to the point where he was so adamant on it, it went against those who made the rules. Yeah. It was almost a complete contradiction, and I had to work under him. Well, it just sort of ended up that way, and it became a case of I had to make it very clear that I wasn't following the same thing. I was the Chico straight guy to this dude's sort of off the cuff antics of and he was effective, don't get me wrong, it was great, and but he was always
there's a lot of that
teetering on
in teaching as well, in that the politics behind teaching has become more and more intense. My parents were both teachers forever, and now I sort of work in a school, but the politics behind teaching are getting more and more insane in terms of the things you have to do to prepare for a class, the things you have to do during teaching a class. It actually gets in the way of being an effective teacher in a lot of ways.
Would any of your kids visit you in hospital?
Any of my kids, maybe just to poke me in the eye. No, I've got a decent rapport with all of them. They probably would, but
Is Harry a good teacher?
no, horrible teacher. No, but that's the point. Chico's oh, I'll be his partner. See how how come they call you Dirty Harry?
Because I'm a shit cop.
Oh, jeez. Oh, you really are. Wow.
Harry doesn't want to teach. He just wants to get the fucking job done in this, and the dude. How long ago did his wife die? Do we know?
No, some time ago.
He comes across as someone whose day-to-day, existence is, it's pretty miserable, you'd imagine. Mental health discussion and things like suicide prevention weren't options. I'm going a bit overboard here, but I can't
imagine him calling Beyond Blue,
or doing the easy way out. It wasn't an option in a guy like that's mind to take their own life. But, now that character probably would.
Maybe, yeah.
He'd probably just beat himself half to an inch of his life and then be fine, I guess.
Well, Jordan, many thanks for joining us for these episodes.
That's been fantastic.
Yeah, you don't have guests on Slice Podcast, do you?
We've had one or two on. We generally don't because we review the movies that come out per week. We see a movie on a Thursday and we review it that weekend. There's not usually a lot of time for other people to catch up on the film and then gather their thoughts.
What happens if Dirty Harry plays at the Astor? Does that qualify for your podcast that you might watch it and review?
It would come down to what else is coming out that week. We try to pick the most commercially sort of renowned films. So if there's quite often we review a movie that none of us would see if we didn't have to review it. Like Aladdin, for example. I would not want to watch Aladdin. It looked like it'd be great for a 7-year-old, but not for me. But we had to review it, so I saw it. But in order for someone else to come on, we're recording the podcast tomorrow.
Yes.
2 days after it was released. For us to get someone to come on, they'd also have to be willing to go out and see that movie and then come visit us and then do that podcast. We're always happy to have people on. I'll invite both of you. If you want to do a movie, we've got someone lined up to do Star Wars because they're we'd love to be on the podcast, but I don't want to see a movie that I don't want to see. So they're gonna we're waiting for Star Wars, which I'm sure will be great, and they're gonna watch that and then come and talk about how bad it is.
So have you seen Aladdin, or are you going to see it tonight?
I saw it last night.
Are there any parallels with Dirty Harry?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Racial stereotypes?
there's 1,000 racial stereotypes. It's incredible. I think there's a main line to be drawn, which is like Aladdin in this film. The characters are idiots because everybody seems to forget how the world works from minute to minute.
Well, many thanks for joining us. Where can people find the Slice Podcast? iTunes?
We're on iTunes, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. We're on everything we're on everything but Spotify. Because we couldn't figure out how to get on Spotify. But we're on everything, everywhere you know how to get your podcast except for Spotify. We're on that. So come over, have a listen, and when you decide it's no good, listen to the rest of it, and then listen to the rest of them. We do one every week, and they're always as good or bad as each other.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really good. We had a lot of fun with it.
Thank you very much, Trent.
Thank
Join
you.
me next time, maybe.
I will be there. I should be there.
Hopefully, we convince Tim to come.
Yes. Yeah. We'll hopefully have the first addition to the Dirty Harry Minute family on board somehow. I don't know what she'll do, but yes.
All right, many thanks. We'll catch you next time, listeners, on Dirty
Dirty Harry Minute.